this is part 4, it looks like, of my novel. Yeah. Yeah. I'll give the name some other time, but not right now. Because I might put this on YouTube, since I noticed that the YouTube video I put on, the audio wasn't working, but hopefully this audio is working. So, but I might give the title in. No, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna call it differently. I wrote this novel, I did, but I'll give it a different name on the internet, at least on YouTube. If I ever put it on YouTube, I may not. Okay, continue here. An angry voiced trucker then added, probably had to pay another fine for accidentally going over a bridge with the weight limit sign deliberately removed. Daniel got a better look at the corpse and noticed that, in spite of being crushed, there was a lot of blood around the throat of the corpse. Looks like his throat was cut as well, another trucker said. Another trucker. Boy, it sure does, by golly, said a hearty, tough, large Marge of a lady trucker. Looks as though he was sliced clean open from ear to ear. I mean, look at all that trail of blood there starting over here. Wow. Notice that. Wow. Notice that all that blood seems to be coming from his throat region and not from any other place. By golly, I think you're right, an old trucker agreed. Another trucker who was scanning the body of the flash with his flashlight said, "Oh, looky here. Looks like he was stabbed too. See where the guts are coming out?" Looking about him, Daniel remarked, maybe he was Aloha Snack Bard? Maybe he was Aloha Snack Bard? Aloha Snack Bard? Shouted one of the truckers. Did you say Aloha Snack Bard? Daniel looked about for a place to run. What are you, a hater? Asked another trucker, as if on the verge of shouting. Daniel noticed that one of the truckers a few feet away from him was a Muslim. A tinge of fear increased in Daniel on first seeing him, but then he noticed that he was dressed as a Muslim with the full beard and Islamic garb. The fear toward the Muslim quickly diminished, for Daniel strongly believed any Muslim who actually looked like a Muslim in America was possibly of the peaceful variety, or a Muslim who still didn't know his Quran and Hadith very well. To Daniel, it was any Muslim trying to appear Western that had to be watched with extreme caution, especially if that Muslim had a beard and the Islamic get-up a day earlier. The Muslims who were stalking him now were clean-shaven and wearing cowboy hats. Realizing that the Muslim a few feet from him was possibly a real trucker, just interested in trying to find out what was going on, Daniel noticed that the concern of him being a possible hater was actually coming from the truckers who didn't seem Muslim at all. Daniel looked shocked over their concern and replied, "Oh, sorry, my bad. That did sound hateful, I guess. Sorry." "You guess?" asked another trucker. "You guess? You don't want to be arrested. You don't want to be arrested for being a hater, do you?" asked still another trucker. No, I don't. I prefer the prison of my truck," said Daniel, backing away. The trucker with the red hair pointed at the squished trucker and said, "Well, I'll be dooby danged. Why, he's wearing a Marty shirt." "What's a Marty shirt?" asked Daniel. "It's that new petroleum company that's using monster tankers to haul petroleum," said a bearded trucker. "They pay real good." That trucker placed an emphasis on the word real. "Really?" responded Daniel. "Monster tankers, you say? Well, if this guy was working for such a company, where is the monster tanker he was driving?" Dale looked about. There was no sign of the special tanker truck at all. The large Marge-looking trucker thought, then laughed, saying, maybe he just wore his shirt so people would think he was special." The old trucker then responded with, "Yeah, if he had a Marty truck in here, he was special, right? Special as in retarded. I mean, all them things is bombs." True, said the large Marge. You are allowed more than one accident with the regular rig, but you aren't allowed any accidents with a petroleum rig. Because the company will fire you? Asked Daniel. The large Marge laughed and said, They don't have to. That truck does the firing for the company, if you know what I mean. And as the large Marge laughed at her double entendre, then, and another trucker talked about how a huge truck stop could be entirely incinerated if a Marty truck was struck by a novice trucker, Daniel decided to get back to his truck. He passed by the woman trucker who was now talking to 911 dispatchers on her cell phone. Daniel upped his speed and scanning of all the trucks around him as he quickly ran to his truck when he noticed that the crowd was growing around the scene. He thought for sure that his would-be killer might come into the mix as well. Back at his truck, Daniel noticed his hand shaking as he tried to unlock the door, as he kept his eyes on the dark places among the idling rigs around him. When he got the door unlocked, he quickly jumped into his cab and locked the door behind him. The light that was still on in the sleeper quickly went off when Daniel jumped at it, pressing a button. Daniel picked up the little package of flour he was earlier going to place into the packet with the CD and said, I lost my chance. This probably was the place for it after all. Daniel tightened his fists with anger. He looked down, feeling ashamed that he felt so cowardly around those truckers, asking God to forgive him for his cowardice. I'm such a coward. I couldn't even call them demis, for which they are. Daniel kept a wary look out at all the trucks, seeing if there was anyone moving quickly and suspiciously in and out between them. As he watched, he picked up his old electronic logbook. No messages had been sent in on it. Daniel then reached under the control panel and pulled out a .357 Magnum from a place where something yellow was located. When no one was looking, he started putting bullets into its chambers. After a spin of the barrel, he put it back where he got it and started the engine to his truck right when he noticed snow beginning to blow in on the truck lot. 2 hours later, Daniel was lumbering his 18-wheeler through a snowy Ely, Nevada, and wondering how anyone kept their sanity in such a small, desolate town before the internet. It was so far from civilization, thought Daniel. As he lumbered down the Great Basin Highway, that seemed deserted, he thought of the town's name and muttered to himself, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Suddenly, Daniel froze with terror to see the same young Middle Eastern guy who mimed throat cutting, now standing on the corner of the street, watching him go by as his cowboy hat collected snow. The same furious look was in his eyes that chilled Daniel to the bone. When Daniel was parallel with him, the guy lifted up his hand and acted like he was taking shots at him, mouthing the words pop, pop, pop. Daniel tried to keep his cool. He just smiled and waved at the guy, all the while ready to jump for his gun if the guy went from miming to the real thing. Daniel wondered if he should call the Ely police station to see if he could have a cop car escort. But how far would they escort him? He then suddenly realized that cops might think he was a kook or worse, a paranoid hater of Muslims. Of course, he knew he didn't have to tell them it was Muslims who were stalking him, but who would he say it was? He didn't want to lie. Daniel trembled to think of that. If calling the cops They might want to search his truck to see if he was taking some kind of drug that might be making him act like a paranoid hater or a paranoid Islamophobe. If the cops did that, Daniel shuddered to think how they might react when they found him to be armed and what he secretly had for the past week tucked away in his truck. If searched, he'd have to kiss trucking and freedom goodbye. Hello, prison life, he said to himself. And would he be any safer in prison? Could he actually convince prison Muslims of the errors of their ways with Islam without ending up being beaten to death? Could his months of studying karate save him? He wondered. Suddenly a car zoomed past him. It flipped a U-turn down at the end of what seemed to be Eli's main street. Thinking it was his wannabe killers, Daniel saw a sign for Highway 6 and turned onto it. As he headed down Highway 6, he pulled out a different gun from where the yellow object was. This was a Glock 19. Daniel put it in the top inside pocket of his leather jacket. He then pulled out the .357 Magnum and put it under his right thigh. As he headed out of Eli, he jumped when he heard honking behind him. A car was speeding toward him from behind. Daniel automatically put pedal to the metal to get the truck traveling as fast as he could get it. But the car not only overtook him, it passed him. Daniel took his foot off the accelerator and fearfully wondered if the car ahead of him would suddenly stop with Muslims jumping out and taking shots through his windshield. Instead, the car kept on speeding until it disappeared into the darkness. What relief Daniel felt suddenly became replaced with an old familiar dread as his cell phone started ringing, showing the number of his trucking company. It was his dispatcher, Desmond, calling to stress another concern. Hello, Desmond, said Daniel. Working overtime? I thought you'd be home by now. I think I'll stop it here.